Literary inspiration comes in all forms. Author Jack Matthews has written lots of things: novels, short stories, essays, poetry, plays. One of his last works, Abruptions, consists of tiny stories, none of which is longer than a page or two.
A cynic might say that you're just responding to the declining attention span of Americans. What is your reaction?
A cynic might be partly right, but we are consistently, when you think of how long the paragraphs and chapters were in 19th century novels, because people were under-entertained by our standards. And of course now we think of the film techniques in which you have a rapidity of images that were just would have proved incomprehensible 70 years ago. I remember seeing Frankenstein when it was first appeared, and I can remember Frankenstein's fiancée making a stage entrance and taking about 40 steps, and the camera was on her all the way, and you wondered if she was ever going to get there. And of course this is so antagonistic to all the values and the quick, sharp images that are flashed upon the screen today. And this means this equates to short fiction in a way.
Flash fiction is nothing new in the literary world. But what is it really? Some people approach it as a constrained form. For instance, you can decide to write a story that is exactly 100 words, and that forces you to structure a story around the constraint, with fun and sometimes unexpected results. You could also look at flash fiction as fragments or premises which for one reason or another never get fleshed out. Matthews was a big fan of keeping idea journals, which he describes in A Worker's Right book. A fiction writer's journal, Matthew wrote, tends to accumulate ideas that have within them some kind of narrative tension. These ideas are, quote, key situations in that they provide a means of entry into the story's basic theme and structure. The instant you draw a circle around a public idea and recreate it in your own language, that idea becomes personal and private. And as the writer, you alone and no one else are responsible for its fulfillment. The story idea becomes intimately your personal possession the instant you begin to work with it. But your function is even greater than this, for you are also the first reader of what you write. The first person to be entertained and interested in what you write is you, yourself.
The abruptions themselves, I also mentioned in the introduction that they obviously lack the texture of a more fully developed story and the richness, and especially, of course, of a novel, which might be 40, 50, 60, 110, 200,000 words. Brevity is power, and it's the narrow instrument that penetrates deepest. I'm convinced of that, and it's great fun to write them, and they have great philosophical evocativeness, a little bit like poetry.
But a one-page story doesn't really resolve a conflict, and it doesn't really delve into emotions or motivation. Mostly it tells rather than shows, rather than tell a story. These abruptions capture a few moments from a person's life and lands on a final moment of insight or beauty. These bite-sized concoctions often end suddenly or unexpectedly, forcing you to look back and ask yourself, why was it necessary to end like that? This confusion is part of the reason why reading abruptions can be so disconcerting and also fun.
Reading Matter, my most recent book on booking, on collecting old and rare books, I dedicate to my implied readers, most of whom are dead.
And then I would add, or are not born yet. I mean,
that's nice. I like that.
So what message would you give to your implied readers who haven't yet been born?
This is what life seems to me, the possibilities of life seem to me to be at this time, and whoever you are and wherever you've gone, this cannot be entirely irrelevant to you. This is Jack Matthews speaking, and I'm going to read one of my short stories, very short stories that I call Abruptions, which are extremely short stories that end abruptly. This was one of his first memories. He was 5 years old and begged to join the older boys in their baseball games. They finally relented, gave him an old glove that hung almost to his knees when he put it on, And to keep him out of the way, they placed him in the, quote, outfield, unquote, beyond a ragged row of barberry shrubs. From this position, the little boy couldn't see any of the other players. Nevertheless, he faithfully kept gazing up into the sky above the little shrubs, waiting, day after day. Then, late one afternoon, it happened. He saw a dark point in the sky. It grew swiftly bigger and bigger until it hit him in the face, knocking him down and bloodying his nose. This was a mystical experience for him, and he never forgot the lesson, which is that there are some things which grow bigger and bigger, and then there is this brief, blunt, painful spasm of darkness, after which they are gone, and you find yourself lying on the ground, looking up at the sky.